We're requesting that the chair begin the meeting, please.
Can you hear us there, John?
Yes.
I think we're ready to begin, Johnny, when you are.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the District of Squamish Advisory Design Panel meeting for March 20th. I'll start with having adoption of the agenda. Can I have someone move that? Sarah, seconded by... Oh, sorry, I got it. Mio, thank you. Great. Okay, so we'll move then into committee minutes. Can we adopt the minutes from the February 20th meeting? Has anybody had a chance to review those and move to adopt them? Mio, thank you. Seconded by someone? I can't see if anybody else seconded.
Sorry, you can't see it. The owl's not picking it up, John.
Okay, somebody seconded there. Hopefully Carly got whoever that was. All in favor or any opposed? Okay. Super. We'll move into the business then. So we have a development permit application for 38006 Cleveland Avenue. Nice high profile corner right downtown. I'll hand it over to Bryan Daly to introduce them.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Bryan Daly, planner with Community Development. This afternoon, we're seeking panel feedback on a DP 625 at 38,006 Cleveland Avenue. It's the northeast corner of Cleveland Ave and Victoria Street. The DP application seeks to establish the form and character of a 6-story mixed-use building. The proposed development has a floor area ratio of 2.25 and proposes approximately 1,250 square meters of gross floor area. The proposed development would consist of 218 square meters of ground floor retail, 158 square meters of office space on the 2nd and 3rd stories, and 20 residential rental units on the 3rd to 6th stories. The application generally meets the requirements of the C4 zone. Building height is 19.77 meters and is required with the or compliant with the required upper story setbacks from Cleveland Avenue. Variance is requested to parking so that no off-street parking spaces are provided for this project. It would require 28 stalls, 20 for the residential units and 8 for the non-residential units. So with that, I will cease my introduction and pass it over to the applicants to present. The architect, Annie, is joining us online, so I just want to let her check her mic and make sure everything's going, and I'll pass it to you guys.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Cesar Villanueva, and Annie Terret is out of the country, so she'll be speaking to this project as well and answer any questions. We're representing ATA Architectural Design. Clark Cavalinas beside me is the landscape architect. Members of our team are also present, project manager Brian Hockey and David Craig from AMC Development. I'll skip the project data and we'll have a little time since Brian has already gone over it. I'll skip to the site. As Brian said, the site is on Cleveland, corner of Cleveland and Victoria Street.
I need to share your screen. Here, I'll help you. I can do it. Oh, you can do it? Okay, sweet.
Great. So the site is adjacent to the massage parlor, the Lilas, on the north side, and Along the east, there are a series of low-rise apartment buildings. Restaurant Copper Coil to the south across Victoria. And across the corner plaza is the office building. And directly across Cleveland is the Crash Hotel. The main entry to the residential is off of Cleveland. We got the residential lobby, commercial unit, covered exterior bike rack on this corner of southeast corner adjacent to the PMT. The green dotted line is a sewer right-of-way, bike room with electric charger, mechanical room, an elevator. I'll briefly talk about the layout just for context. On the second floor, you have the offices and mechanical units at the back. On the L3, offices on the west wing, a series of studio units with balconies, private balconies. And on the east side is one bedroom unit. On L4, there's one bedroom unit on the west wing, series of studios, and one bedroom on the east side. On L5, you have we're proposing a common patio that can be accessed by elevator. Again, a series of studio with balconies and one bedroom unit. On the top floor, L6, there's the two bedroom penthouse loft with wraparound private patio and another common patio, rooftop patio that can be accessed only through the exit stairs. There's lots going on here, so it should make sense in a moment. The site is on the corner. We're proposing a couple of public seating, one along the Cleveland Avenue, 35 feet by 7 feet public area. And on the east side, we're proposing 35 feet by 10-foot public seating area. There's potential public seating area and landscaping along Victoria and Cleveland. We will work with planning once that streetscape has been finalized. For wayfindings, we have signage, awning sign facing Cleveland, and one blade sign midway through Victoria, 8 foot to the other side of the blade sign. I suppose one will need a ladder to be able to vandalize that sign. For lighting, proposing a series of pot lights along the just below the awning, wall sconces at the back, and series of pot lights just below the L3 floor cantilever, just to provide some more, just to cover the dark spaces at the back. There are also existing light posts, one in the corner of Cleveland and Victoria, one in the corner of Victoria and Loggers Lane, and one basically northeast corner of the building. Just want to highlight where the seating areas are. You can see here on the top left in the rendering, there's the 35 feet by 7 feet public areas. At the back on the east side along Loggers, there's the 35 foot by 10 feet seating area and potential landscaping. For connectivity, the site is very well situated, a good location. 1 block away from Junction Park to the south, 1 block away to Stan Clark Park and Playground. That can be accessed to along Cleveland as well as the Loggers Lane at the back. Towards the east, there's the Mamquam River Channel, and it's about 10-minute walk to the Nestor's Market. The overall aesthetics is contemporary and clean-lined. Emphasis is on functionality and sustainability. I'll speak briefly about the sustainability a bit later. Proposed massing is rectangular with slight setbacks and variations in the facade to add some interest. Residential floor are characterized by a series of balconies that are recessed into the structure. The variation in the facade, primarily the balconies being set back, prevent it from appearing too monotonous. Balcony screens will provide privacy between the units. The ground floor has large storefront windows for commercial space with visible interior showcasing possible grocery store and market. Here's the facade off of Cleveland, main entry to the residential portion. The main entry to the commercial is facing the corner plaza. And another set of entry exit midway to along Victoria Street. For materials, the facade is clad in light concrete panel with plant boxes around the windows. The inspiration came from the chief, reflecting the granite look with trees growing through the fractured rock and greeneries and trees at the base. That's basically reflected on the west side of Cleveland and Loggers Lane. The penthouse would be clad with standing seam metal siding, wood fascia around upper balconies, cedar siding on the upper floor facade, vertical wood slat. All that wood brownish warm tone will provide warmth and complement the light concrete panels. The ground floor commercial space features stone cladding, cedar soffit below the awning to provide strong visual interest and natural feel at the base. Proposed window box, guardrails, and planter boxes are finished with oil bronze inspired by Britannia Mine. The balconies will be separated by dividers, finished with frosted glass. Metal awning above the ground floor will provide wind protection for pedestrian and summer shading for south-facing storefront windows. Metal awning will face the Cleveland above the ground floor and wrap around Victoria Street. The overall color palette is muted and calming. The light concrete panel of the main facade is balanced by dark brown, metal, and warm natural wood. The landscaping, which include potted plants on the ground floor, balconies, and windows, just to introduce some touches of green. Briefly talk about sustainability. The awning and balconies are placed to provide shading on windows and doors for passive summer cooling. The project will meet minimum step code requirements. Electric bicycle outlets will be provided in the bicycle room, and materials will be locally sourced. Also providing some metal fins on around the penthouse windows for further some more summer shadings. There are two main common outdoor areas, one on the 5th floor that is accessed by elevator, and one on the 6th floor, accessed only by the stairs. There's a wraparound private patio for the penthouse, and the studios will have each its own outdoor balcony space. Briefly talk about shading impact. Summer impact is at the top page. Morning, midday, mid-afternoon. During winter, sun's low. You get more shades. The red box is where the site is. Again, that's morning, midday, and mid-afternoon. This is the spring equinox. Again, morning, midday, and mid-afternoon. With that, I will pass it on to the landscape architect, Clark Cavalinas.
It's right here. I'll just switch sheets. Thank you. Clark Cavalinas, landscape architect. Start out on the ground floor where we have this little corner feature, which is separated a little bit from the public realm. It gives it a little bit of separation, but it also gives it eyes on to the public realm. It's a place for people kind of to tuck themselves out of the busyness of the street, but at the same time to sit there and have a quiet coffee or sit there and have a quiet conversation, but still have the public realm close to them. I've seen it a lot in the US, down in the Georgia area where they still have the stoops and where they encourage people to talk and people to interact with each other. And I think this little space is great for that. It gives a little bit of separation, but it also allows for some interaction. And as was mentioned earlier, we will do the streetscape. We have your design guidelines, we have your design criteria. And once the civil comes up with the actual final street plan, we'll put that all together for you and we'll blend it with our project as well. And when we go up to the 5th floor, the public common area, what we've done is we've provided some planters around the perimeter. We've allowed for views out off the edge of the 5th floor public area. And we've tucked in some planters with some trees for some shade. We've got a seating area with some nice lounge furniture for people to have a quiet time for themselves. And we've also provided a small sort of barbecue outdoor kitchen where people can come maybe in a very small group and have an outdoor barbecue on it as well. The material we've used is a light colored material to help with the heat bubble. And so there's not a lot of heat absorption up on that floor, and trying to keep it as cool as we can and as environmentally cool as we can. The penthouse area, the area that we've done there, we've left it open as much as possible to program, self-program itself, but we've also around the perimeter created some more trees in planters for shade and some other planter boxes around the perimeter itself. And I think that's about it for the landscape.
So you guys are done with your presentation. I just wanted to add a little bit more context with respect to the streetscapes. So Victoria is subject to a capital project that's about to go out for tender. So engineering hasn't been able to share any of those drawings yet because they need to go through the RFP process. So if we release drawings early, then that's offside of the process. So that is why there is limited detail with respect to that bit. But they should be going out shortly. And then there'll be collaboration through the servicing agreement process with that design.
Bryan, could you also just give us a little bit more context for the requested variances?
Sure. So there is a parking variance to provide no parking. There was direction with the property owner and developer given from planning staff to explore developing this site without any parking, given that there had been a number of previous development proposals that were quite challenging to accommodate parking. I think everyone on the panel would recognize the challenges with meeting the parking requirements on a small site like this. So I believe the direction was given that if you can meet the employment space requirements, and if you're proposing rental, that this was an option that could be explored further. So this is the proposal that has come forward.
So that's super helpful. Maybe just a quick follow-up. Is there policy support for this? And is the applicant proposing any mitigation, like parking traffic mitigation suggestions to account for the variance?
So we're still negotiating the cash in lieu proposal for this. Again, we need the applicants need the design or to, understand the extent of that capital project so they can determine the frontage improvements that are required and make an offer for cash in lieu that still makes this project viable. But we've been discussing them providing cash in lieu for all the commercial parking stalls and then varying the residential parking requirement because it'll be secured as market rental in perpetuity.
Okay,
of the
but
residential
no,
units.
like no measures to sort of mitigate, like no car share or bike share or transit passes for residents or anything like that?
No, that has not been discussed.
Okay, awesome. We'll just open it up and go through. I'm sure that the panelists will have plenty more questions. So again, as usual, we'll go through a round of questions. So each panelist will have a chance to ask questions for clarification. We'll follow that up with a round of comments on the project, and I'll try and summarize the comments as best as we can. So maybe we'll just start with the folks online and then move into the room. So Annie, you're up first on my list. Do you have any questions?
Oh, no, I'm the architect, so I don't have any
Oh,
questions.
sorry, Annie. Great, thanks for being here. You better not have any questions at this point. Sorry, we'll go over to Mio.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. A few questions. So I guess I was wondering about the soil volumes for the rooftop trees. Do we know how much soil they have?
Yeah, we're using very small trees and we're usually trying to have about 4 to 5 cubic meters of topsoil. And sometimes what I've found is more effective on rooftops than having a small tree is you have a large shrub in a tree form. You can do like a hydrangea, you can do a hibiscus. And if you get in a tree form, it's a larger shrub and it doesn't require as much topsoil, but it provides the same effect as a tree. So we're going to look at that and we're going to that's a very valid point. We're going to make sure we have enough soil for the trees.
And then just wanted to confirm what the planter typologies are. So it looks like on the first floor, you're proposing the deep stream product. And then, so on the upper levels, it looks like there's two things going on. There's a cast in place planter on the roof potentially, and then the metal planter boxes as well. So just wanted to understand where those are and how that language is being used.
Yeah, I think you got it right. We have some port in place planters around the perimeter, and then we have some actual deep stream planters, and you can get those customized to whatever size you want for the trees up in those upper areas as well. Yes.
So the upper areas is also the same product as as the ground floor.
Yeah.
And then
Pretty much, yes.
the metal planters that I see in the architectural materials, those are on the studio patios. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe you're correct. Yes.
Okay. And then just wondering about maintenance access for the landscape on that top floor amenity between the private and shared amenity space. Is there like a gate or something for people to come in and
Yeah,
between
we'll
those
make
two.
sure there's access for maintenance. That'll be for sure on that upper floor. We'll make sure that's there. Yes.
Okay, great. And then just I see that there's a planting plan, but I don't see the actual like plant locations on the rooftop plan. It's sort of a render there. I was kind of wondering if it would be possible to be kind of walked through where those plants are generally, or if there's kind of like a high level sort of like what plants are where kind of breakdown.
Yeah, you're asking for the where the species is located in.
Exactly, yeah, it's not indicated on the plans.
Yeah, that should have been on a plan. This is a colored plan. I should have been another plan that has my actual planting plan on it. I can get that to you for sure.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mio. We'll go over to Sarah now. Questions?
Hi, thanks for your presentation. And just following off of what Mio was asking is I was curious about the window boxes that are shown in the renderings that are off of the 1-bedroom units. What's planted in those? How are they maintained? Can you answer that, please?
We haven't decided on anything in the window boxes yet, but we will be putting something there. Sometimes what goes in the window boxes and what is best is sort of an annual and it gets planted on an annual basis. But we can also do some perennials that work well there, but we haven't made a decision on that yet. So.
Okay, but the intent is that they're going to be consistent. It's not going to be sort of left to whomever is living there to plant whatever they want, or?
No, it'll be consistent. Yes. That way it works best with the overall plan.
Okay, and then now I have some questions. Let me just get to the right screen here. Around the garbage room. It doesn't appear that there's a flat landing into the entrance of the garbage room. It looks like it's on a 5% slope or 4.8. Is that correct?
We will have a flat landing where the door is, and because we haven't gotten the final grades from civil, we just kind of roughly put it there to make sure it would work. But where the door entry is into it will be flat.
Okay, just because in exiting that building, if you're having to pull open a heavy door, which probably won't
Yeah.
have an opener on, and you're pushing up slope, it's going to be impossible. It's
Yeah.
also, you know, it's going to be like, it's tricky at best in a wheelchair trying to
Yes.
take your rubbish down, and with dueling slopes down here, it's, yeah, it's a little bit tricky. So it would be great if within the room, if there was any way of being able to reduce that at all, would be fantastic, because I think that that's
Are you talking about inside the garbage room itself, or on the pathway entry to get to the door entrance in, or
well, both. I mean, you're going to have to maintain the slope within the hallway, but I'm just wondering if once you've entered the building into the room itself, if the majority of the receptacles can be flat, so that
Yeah.
you're rolling away as you're trying to put things into those
Yeah.
bins. And
Yeah,
also
totally.
cognizant about, you know, I mean, I'm not sure that you get any choice in those containers, but just that they are as accessible as possible. And it also, you know, might be valuable to think about people with low vision, and even, you know, sort of having bolder colors or signage above those bins to make sure that they're, you know, identifiable for somebody doing that, using that, or with that disability. Hang on,
Yeah.
I've got some more questions for you. And it appears that the the 1-bedroom units are going to be, are those going to be accessible, or are they going to be adaptable?
Those are going to be accessible. Those are the adaptable units.
Okay, but there's a difference between accessible and adaptable. Adaptable is an estate waiting to be turned into accessible. Accessible
Yeah.
is wheelchair ready.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so they're already good. Sorry, they will be accessible. Those are the ones that were meeting the adaptability needs by being accessible. So on the accessibility plan, it should show for all of the bathrooms and hallways within that 1-bedroom unit that we're meeting all the clearances required, and that the bathroom themselves have the clearances under the sink, the space on either side of the toilet, and the tub. Although I realize now we have tubs and not flush flush showers. Are
Yeah, I
flush
would-
showers preferred then in that case?
absolutely. And then
Okay.
you should have flush showers, and also the faucets to operate that should be in the middle of the wall so that somebody can sit on a bench at the end and
Okay.
still operate the shower. It should be a handheld shower on a raising bar, and then have, obviously having the backing in the wall for grab bars. But if they're going to be rental units, I would suggest having at least one grab bar in each shower.
Okay.
And then, so you're saying that there is the space beneath the sinks in both the kitchen and the washroom to wheel under, but will they be ready? Will they have like the sort of the pocket door slide for the cupboard doors to either like slide away out of the way without a base plate in the cabinet, or are you just proposing that cabinet to be empty altogether?
So we hadn't designed the kitchens at all yet, but my understanding was we were just going to have them open. But if there's a recommended approach, we're happy to oblige.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that if you're gonna have the cabinets there, then those slide away pocket slides are probably the best choice. And then the only other question, I guess, was back to the district, is just along Victoria, there's a bike lane that's supposed to be going along there. How is the parking going to intersect with that bike lane?
I believe the parking is being removed as part of that capital project. Do not quote me on that, but I believe it is.
So you're gonna lose the parking along Victoria Street, and you're proposing that there's not gonna be any parking for any of these units within the building?
That's the proposal.
Wow. Bold. Okay, and so my last question is there any proposed drop-off area that's gonna be available for this building?
Not dedicated to this. I suppose that would be an ongoing conversation with engineering as to how they want to handle. I believe the frontage will maintain relatively similar along Cleveland, and there's those existing parking stalls. So that'd be a conversation with engineering through the servicing agreement process.
Right. Given that there's nowhere that somebody can like park their car to
Mhm.
get their groceries in, I mean, I think that this should be
I-
a consideration. And, additionally, that you guys haven't considered any car sharing, I think those might be other things to think about. Those are all my questions at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. We'll move into the room now. I know we've got Luke in the room. Questions, Luke?
Thanks, John. Thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question for staff. Can you clarify if there's any requirement in the bylaws for office and residential being on the same level? I believe that they were meant to be separated.
That used to be in the zoning bylaw. It has been removed.
Been removed?
Yes.
Okay. Is this project required to meet the minimum small unit sizes as well, the 500 square feet, or is it fine to do that? Is there any staff response on or opinion on the 300 square feet?
The 300 square foot minimum.
500 square feet minimum, but like on these particular unit sizes, is there any opinion from staff or request for comment on that?
No comment on that.
Okay, and what about the unit mix and the minimum 20% 3 beds?
That's only secured through rezoning applications.
Okay. Just clarifying, thank you. Okay, so just looking at the back with the garbage and the PMT, could you guys walk me through how you're planning on programming the public space and how that would be used, please?
Okay, so like the
Use up.
so the idea here is to have all the furnitures could be extended into the sidewalk. There are some room for umbrellas and a series of furniture for seating and possible landscaping, as you can see here, to separate the sidewalk along Victoria and the seating area.
Sorry, I'll just add here. So all that furniture actually is seasonal, temporary, and removable, because that whole rectangle along the back is the sewer right of way. So we can't actually have anything permanent along there. So everything to go along there would be seasonal and temporary, to expand out in the summertime to provide more outdoor space of either market uses, if people have stalls, if they're doing like a farmer's market, or to have the seating that can be there as well in the summer.
Okay, thanks. And that's 10 foot from the sidewalk, which is part of the street section.
Correct.
Thanks. And then, given that we have the garbage there and everything, and there's no parking proposed on site or around it, how are you proposing loading would be taken care of?
So we haven't actually seen streetscape standards for the laneway. So I know we're showing a sidewalk, but I don't know if what will be there at this point. So we thought, because that's the laneway, that for the majority of the year, where that right of way is, especially during the wintertime, the garbage trucks can pull onto that right of way, and then the garbage would just be pulled out onto the property and loaded and then taken away. And then in the summertime, the expectation could be that it would be pulled a little further into the laneway to load if the space is being used. But because garbage is, sort of a one-time thing, a few days a week, it's not going to be all the time that we need to keep the space clear for garbage. So that's why all the furniture would be of a movable nature.
Okay, and you say laneway. Do you mean Loggers Lane?
Sorry, yeah, Loggers Lane.
Okay, thank you. Has there any consideration been given to like the future bridge from sea and sky and its connection onto Victoria? And how do you envision that your project will integrate with that streetscape?
Yeah, so that's why we've actually really focused on the Victoria streetscape to be sort of really of the pedestrian level, where we have all glass openings along there with the opening midway through to accommodate people coming along so that they can enter into the market space on the ground level. And then also have as much visibility out, because it is meant to be a my understanding is it will be a pedestrian street, so a lot of bikes and people walking along. As well, on the inside, we've also have seating and bar space that will run along on the back side, closer to Loggers Lane, looking out onto Victoria, so that people can look out and connect out to that pedestrian street.
Okay, thanks. And then the level 2 of like the commercial that's facing onto Victoria, it looks like, or it appeared like it was solid wall. Is there any glazing proposed or openings there? Or?
Originally, we had toyed with the idea of having clear-story windows there, as it's a double-height space, but due to the fact that that is south-facing, currently we saw the value in providing a solid wall with more insulation in it, because the awning is below it, so that the awning that's there can provide shading to the glazing, and then we're not having, south-facing glazing that is, one, difficult to reach, to be lowering curtains to, and it also provides the opportunity to have as much mechanical space as the commercial will need, so that when we have a drop ceiling down, we have enough space to provide all of the appropriate mechanical equipment running through it.
Okay, thanks. And then so what was the height of the canopy above the streetscape?
It's 9'8" to the underside.
9'8". Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just to touch on materials very briefly, you mentioned there'll be oiled bronze. Could you please expand on that finish and what it is, the material and the actual finish?
It's a metal, so it would be the metal planters and metal window boxes. And instead of like a charcoal or dark color, we wanted a more brown oil bronze color.
So would that be like a preformed folded metal, or would it actually be bronze?
Oh, no, sorry, it's not going to be bronze metal. It would be the colored steel.
Okay, so it's a painted steel. What would the paint finish be?
Usually, I'm trying to think what steel does. They do like a powder coated finish, but we would talk with the suppliers as to the most appropriate finish for that metal, because a lot of it will be south facing. So if they're, yeah, we will be in conversations with the suppliers about the most appropriate one, because we don't want that to look bad after a couple of years, let's say.
Okay, would it be like, is it a solid color, or is it like is it meant to emulate the patina of the bronze?
Yeah, that was the intent. Originally, there had been other materials that were actually quite high maintenance thrown around, that we wanted to have a nod towards that, and still that kind of natural brown tone of the mining museum, but without having something like, for example, Corten steel that's going to be dripping and rusting, over time. So yes, we wanted there to be a little bit of variation in it, so that it's not a matte flat material.
Okay. Sorry, last one. There's a lot of questions here. What's the consideration for privacy between the upper L6 deck and then the actual sort of penthouse that's up there in that deck?
We had a row of planters that would divide the private deck from the common space deck.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, John.
Thanks, Luke. Over to you. I believe we've got Celso in the room with Luke there. Celso? Questions. We'll have a round for comments, obviously, as well. This is just the questions for clarification.
Sure. Thanks for the presentation. Question to staff. Gets a little hard to comment. I have the same question about how the loading is going to work. Not knowing loading and parking, I would love to have a conversation with engineering to understand what is the criteria to approve or not this non-parking, because especially this site it's quite busy area, right? And you telling me that those stalls along Victoria might disappear brings a little bit of concern. It's not part of the ADP, but I would love myself, for curiosity, to understand how parking is being dealt with in the city of in this district. Again, my concern about this loading, I understand Loggers is not a service lane. It's just called lane, but it's a street. So considering that this, I understood, is a future stature right away, or something is going to happen on Loggers as well. So temporary, I hear, the loading can be tandem within the proper line. I'm not too concerned about where the truck will be parked, but how it accesses that location based on the proximity of this corner that is heavy pedestrian used. So it's a question to staff, and I'm sure you guys can solve that, but I think need to be a better plan as to how a small truck could come in and pull out the garbage.
So just a quick reminder, we will have a round for comments following this round.
Oh, that was a
can really get into questions.
Yeah, no, it's yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Carry on.
Question. I had a concern also about the planter box on the windows. Are there going to be irrigation, drainage, everything?
They should have some sort of drip system in it. And if we're going to provide the planters there, we will try to accommodate some sort of irrigation system.
Okay. As far as questions, that's it.
Thanks. Also, who I know there's one or two more folks in the room, but I can't see who it is.
I'm here, Kim Smith.
Oh, hey, Kim, go
Sorry,
for
I
it.
joined a bit late, so apologies.
Oh,
My
you're
question,
online.
I
Okay,
just have
Kim.
one question, which I was kind of asked before, but is there no minimum limits to apartments in Squamish? Do you have any minimum standards? Because these are very small.
Not that I'm aware of in the zoning bylaw. In the building code, there may be minimum sizes. Oh, in the OCP, but that wouldn't be applicable unless this was a rezoning.
I see. Okay. That was most of the other questions have been fielded already, I think.
Okay, thanks, Kim. We'll go back to the room. I think we've got Michael still. Any questions, Michael?
Yep. Can you tell me what the bike rack product will be? Or what style of bike rack it'll be?
Yeah, so they'll be for the, except for the bike racks that will be for longer trailer bikes, they will be wall mounted, staggered so that they can fit 2 per locker room.
Sorry, this the exterior bike racks.
Oh, those.
Yeah.
Sorry. Actually, Clark, I don't know if we had specified, we would meet whatever standards the district has, but typically we've been using the rounded, I forget what they're called now, the round
haven't
where you can
specified a
double off the
specific-
bike.
Yeah, we haven't specified a specific standard yet, but we'd be more than happy to work with Squamish to get something that is coordinated with their street furniture.
Okay. And has any anchoring of the trees or large shrubs been considered on the roof? Like anchoring of the root balls for the trees that are being proposed on the roof?
Yeah, that we'll make sure that everything's safe up there, everything's anchored, everything is good up there, yes.
Okay. And then in the sort of the corner plaza area, if you can just switch to the plan view. Oh, are you able to switch to the diagram on your presentation? Either one, or I guess maybe the landscape one. So the solid line on the building there, is that that goes down to the ground level, or is, I'm just wondering because some of those tables look like they're cut off by the building wall, or are they under an overhang there?
Is there an overhang right there?
I think you can only fit a table and 2 chairs there. That chair that's facing the Cleveland. I don't think that'll fit.
Okay.
Yep.
But the overhang does go to the property line, so it's kind of covering those planters.
That's right.
Okay. And then is there any thought, I know you said that the plantings in the window boxes would be done consistently. Is there any thought to how they'd be maintained annually? And I'd expect they would need to be accessed in the spring and fall through all the rental units windows.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure there's a maintenance program with this. I haven't dealt with planters a lot from the windows, but we're gonna make sure that there's some sort of access to it and that they'll be able to be cleaned up in the fall and reestablished in the summertime.
And then my last question, with the spatial allocation on the rooftop there, why was so much space given to the penthouse suite compared to the public amenity space?
Annie, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, the, well, the penthouse space the side of the units that are facing the common space is where the bedrooms are currently. So we're trying to provide as much privacy for those bedrooms and separation between what would be the bedrooms and the common amenity space. And yeah, that was the extent of it.
That's all my questions. Thanks.
Sean, just myself here in the room here. Andrew. ODT.
Take it away.
Does that mean that the
I think he just dropped. This is chat. We're on chat.
yeah,
Luke here taking over co-chair briefly. Andrew, on to you for questions.
With respect to waste management, what has there been any consideration to the service agreement to manage the waste? Loggers Lane is an active street and not so much a lane. My question, more nuanced, is who moves the planters when waste is serviced? Who moves all of the furniture, etc.?
I would say the planters perhaps were a newer addition that I hadn't been aware of. I thought it would just be more temporary potential furniture and tables that could be put out there for markets and whatnot. So I hadn't anticipated that would need to be moved, but there would be obviously the owners would start conversations with waste management. And I mean, for the site itself, the Victoria Street wasn't optimal to be the pedestrian street, and then Cleveland isn't optimal either. So we kind of have to figure out how to make it work on Loggers Lane and work with the district on that, basically.
Okay, thank you. Second question. With respect to 36.10, variations, material pattern, detail, how would you consider that you've met that objective on the Cleveland frontage?
Sorry, can you just go over what 3610 is again?
3610 is building form, massing, and variation. Overall building siting form massing should be sufficiently varied to promote interest and avoid monotonous building image. It goes on to say that should include articulated massing, variation of material pattern, and detail. Perhaps you could pull up the Cleveland frontage and.
Yeah, I think part of that is the angle of the rendering as well. So Cleveland is where we have the building stepping back as it goes up. So on the ground level, we've got the stone facade with some of the glass into the commercial. And then for the next two levels, we've got the lightweight panels with the planters. And then the level above has the fir siding. And then the top penthouse level will have the darker standing seam material. And then all of those balconies will also have railings that are coming down to add variation. And then as well on the street level, we'll have planters with planting that enclose that small patio right on the Cleveland front.
Do you have any renderings that would identify the perspective of the pedestrian on the Cleveland frontage, considering that the buildings are stepped back the upper levels beyond what would appears to be the fourth story? Would probably not be visible from pedestrian.
I don't think we have renderings showing it quite from the pedestrian level, but you'd mostly at that level, as you're walking along Cleveland, you'd see mostly the stone and then the awning with the cedar siding soffit on it. So that would be predominantly what you would be experiencing. And then as you step back further, then you'd see more of the next two levels of the building going up with the panels and the window boxes.
Thanks, Danny. With the PMT location being on a primary frontage, has any consideration been made for sort of temporary treatment to the PMT, providing that all of the utility company dimensions are, clearance dimensions are met?
Sorry, can you explain a little further what you're asking about?
I'll rephrase the question. Is there any, has any consideration being made to sort of conceal the PMT on the primary frontage, even in a temporary manner, so that it's still serviceable, but is less predominant?
I think that the only option that's viable, well, I shouldn't say that. I think the main one that we had considered would be looking at the option of having artwork. I know that Hydro has programs where they'll do artwork onto the PMTs. But for temporary, the only thing that would make sense would be some temporary screening, but that, because it's such a large void space that we need for the requirements for Hydro, I'm not sure how effective that would be. Yeah. Yeah, we Zara and I have spoken about this, so we're aware that there's a PMT right there. Zara, I don't know if you have any other comments.
The only option we have really based on the regulation by BC Hydro is we can't put anything, we talked about putting a fence in the front, and we can't really do that. It's not allowed.
Well, we can't do that because of the right of way,
So the only option we have really is to maybe, we talked about it last night about maybe hiring a local artist that provides some sort of graphic on it.
Thanks, that answers my question there. That's all the questions I had.
John's back.
Hey, thanks, Michael. I'm back. Sorry, everybody. Has everyone had a chance to ask questions? Are there any additional questions?
I have one question.
Yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to ask about the shared washrooms that are on the main level and who's to be using that. Like, I assume that they're inclusive washrooms, and that the shower is for the employees, or is that for public use of that retail space?
The shower is a requirement of the, we have two commercial Class A bike stalls, and then they require the shower. So due to the fact that it's such a small amount of bike stalls, the intent is the shower would be for employees probably before the public is there. So that shower would get used earlier. And then once the commercial space sort of market level is open, then it would be the public that would be using those washrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we've covered all the questions, we'll move into the round of comments, and we'll go back again, starting with the folks joining online. Mio, you're first. Do you have any comments to share?
Sure, yeah. So I guess some suggestions. So yeah, we've addressed soil volume, just ensuring that there's adequate soil volume for the 5 trees proposed. And then not having seen the planting plan, it's hard to comment exactly, but just generally speaking, would encourage placing evergreen plants in a way that allows for year-round screening, where privacy is needed. There's the opportunity to potentially integrate more Indigenous planting there, or enhance habitat value by the species selection. And I think we already talked about maintenance access, and it was addressed that that would be provided between the public and private patio areas on the top floor there, on the rooftop rather. And yeah, I guess also given that the planters on the private unit patios are a prominent design feature here, I would stress the importance of the planting selection there and choosing something that will be, for lack of a better word, fairly bulletproof, just because, you know, there's going to be a variety of people living there and might not be the greenest of thumbs. So yeah, that's all the comments from me, but thank you again for the presentation.
Awesome, thanks, Mio. Next up, we'll go to Sarah.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. And overall, the project looks good. There are a few things that need some improvements. One of the recommendations is to make sure that you've got some automatic door openers on both, you know, into the residential lobby and then through to the garbage room and into the garbage room. And I would encourage you to have the door at a flat access point and to try and have the receptacles be as flat as possible to, you know, just to make it easier to get refuse from your lap into the bin. And then additionally, the accessible units, ensure that they've got wheel-in showers. There's a base that you can get that should be sufficient. And then people can provide their own benches should it be necessary, but they should be operable from that bench position with a handheld shower. And I would go further to say that also the larger bathroom that will be used by the employees with the shower should also be of this same configuration. And if you need any help, just look at CSA B651 that can give you those details. I do have some real concerns about accessing the building and the lack of parking. So I think that definitely there should be a drop-off area established, and yeah, just to ensure that the access onto the site is pretty good. I mean, I guess the bike lane is there, so you'll have curb cuts just at the two corners. But if there's going to be a drop-off zone, you know, for instance, immediately in front of the access to the residential units, then they should also have a curb cut from that location. And yeah, those are my primary comments. So thank you for the presentation.
Okay, awesome, Sarah. And we'll go to Kim.
Okay, a lot of it's been spoken through the questions already. I think the units are shockingly small, and that's was my question. Is there a limit, a minimum standard? And I understand you're trying to get all of this in a single site. The balconies for those small units are fairly generous. You could consider borrowing some space from the balconies and making the units so you can actually walk around a bed or a table, because from what I see, they're they're smaller than a motel room. They're very small rooms. So that creates a different kind of housing, which is maybe Airbnb or studio. I'm not sure. And then the planters look good in your renderings. I think, again, for such small housing units, they're not going to be maintained. So I would look at something else to add to the facade than those planters, because I see them as potentially being planters of dead plants, because you don't have access to them as a strata to look after the plants. I mean, who's going to do it? You depend on the owners that are straddling to sharing them. So I think the planters look nice in the rendering. In reality, I think they have problems. The Cleveland Street elevation, it would be nice if you could look at that a little bit with a little bit more balance and grace, because it's a pretty awkward elevation. You could maybe do it with material changes a little bit more, but I find it's sort of the weakest of your elevations. And it would be nice if you could give it a bit more. We're saying, well, you don't see above the awning. That's not true. You do as you're coming down a street. You will see that whole elevation. And then I would agree, I would suggest, and that was kind of brought up too, is I understand on your top floor, you're trying to give space to the bedrooms of the 2-bedroom unit, some privacy, but you could still pull back that dividing line and give a little bit more outdoor space for the rest of the units so that they could use it as an amenity and go up there and have a dinner or something like that. So I think you could still maintain the privacy to the bedrooms on that side and give your group space, public or shared space, a bit more generosity. And again, it's an awkward site. I agree that Loggers Lane as a loading and unloading is a difficult problem. So have no solutions, but it looks like a difficult problem. So yeah, those are my comments.
John, this is your co-chair. Are you here still?
I shut it down, sorry.
Who is next in the order? Because has everyone spoken that's online? Okay, I'll just move it into the room here.
Sorry, Luke, sorry, I seem to drop off again, but
Okay.
on you for comments.
Oh, it's on me now. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I think the primary concern I have with this one is the overall livability of the project. I understand that there are certain numbers you have to meet with your performers, and if these units are small. I actually don't mind the small units. I think they're actually. It's nice to see a different product, and I think that should exist here in Squamish. But I think it has to be delivered with diversity, and that seems to be there's these small units with a couple of like 2 1-beds on the end, but they don't have any decks. The studios have decks, and then you have this one big penthouse at the top. The thing I struggle with most is that the parking. I think a full parking variance for zero parking on a project it could be supported, and it actually could be a very interesting thing. But I think the project has to give something in return, and I think that should be at minimum 100% cash in lieu, given the price of it costs to construct a parking space versus what they're actually getting. It seems to me that rather than going for a parking variance of 100% and only providing 8 units, we've gone way above beyond here on like not above and beyond, sorry, the opposite actually. A 6-story building that's fully packed out with small 1-beds, and there's no parking whatsoever, in a combination with no loading and no streetscape. So what's actually happening here is it could be supportable, but it's not livable. And that's the biggest problem with it. So the streetscape, I think, is not really workable on loggers here, because ultimately it's not a lane, but it is a primary like actual trucking route through Squamish. And so to have a patio in that area, I don't think that's actually the right response. Ultimately, there will be garbage there, and there will be a PMT there, and that's what it has to be. But I think that needs to be moved somewhere else on the project, because something like this density needs to give something back to the community in some way, shape, or form. I think the sense of arrival to the building could have a little bit more consideration, just so you know, in terms of wayfinding, where the actual entrance is, given that there are that many units. It's sort of tucked away down the side, and I get that you've done that to give as much to the streetscape as possible, but there's not actually a lot of space left over, and I think it'd be quite hard to find it. The accessibility, I'm not very supportive of no elevator access to the upper level. The biggest unit on the project is up there, and you can't actually get a wheelchair up there. And in the 2024 code, I don't think that's acceptable. I also think the mix could be a bit more diverse, rather than all being studios and then one large unit on top. I think there's opportunity to having some more interesting products here that could be maybe a bit more live work, which would be more of a better interface with the office components. You don't often see an office component next to a residential directly in the mixed use. Normally it would be split to floors, and that's mainly due to acoustics. I just can't stress the importance enough about having a good acoustic separation between those units and those office occupancies. The loading for me is a really big concern, given that it's hard enough to drive down Loggers as it is, even when the town is quite quiet. There'll be people pulling off there to try and not only unload the garbage, but also service the commercial. This is going to be a market, you're telling us, and there is no way to park and stop off your car out front. I think that is a very big concern and needs to be addressed, whether it's through the city or through the proponent. So I apologize that you're getting my flack here. And then moving on to the exterior, the materials, I appreciate that you've acknowledged the chief, but I can't like let go of the fact that you're just putting Grey Hardy on there and saying it represents the chief, because it just doesn't. I think that's a wonderful gesture to make, but I think you have to take it a little step further and look at textures and bring in different form and character, because I don't think that is actually unique to Squamish, so it doesn't meet that DPA guideline. The window boxes with the planting, though, I think that's a very nice response. I think that adds almost a personal touch to each unit. I would just advise that there is irrigation and things brought into it. If it's an annual thing, obviously, that goes onto the strata. So it could be that's again another thing that gets added onto the livability aspect of it, and the people who are living there will be paying for that. The massing on the west side of Cleveland, I think, is quite appropriate. I like the stepping down. However, potentially the boxes could be given different consideration to help break it down and make it feel more of a small town scale, rather than it feels more of it would be part of more of a larger apartment building. And then also, the materials and colors themselves, this could have a bit more of I think a warmer color palette, maybe a pop of color here and there over just the gray. And the metal siding, I do have concern over what that pattern could look like, given it's obviously going to be a folded profile steel. The detailing of that is going to be very tricky around the window boxes, and I think that'll be a really important feature to ensure that it's detailed correctly. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Luke. We'll go on from Luke to Celso. Comments on the project, Celso.
Thank you. Some of my concerns were already voiced. I think we need a little bit more clarity as to what's going to happen with this capital project along Victoria and anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Concerns with that loading pickup, especially by having the a PMT right adjacent to the proposed loading. And I understand the proposal is to have a small grocery or convenience store. So there's going to be a lot of organics and things and whatnot. And if the program of picking those up and recycling is not consistent and robust, we're going to see that alcove of, the PMT all for garbage because it hasn't been picked up properly or whatever. I don't know how to comment on parking, but is a very serious concern from my end. But I guess we have to coordinate that with engineering. I like the planters on the windows, but been there, done that, and I don't know how that on a rental unit could work. You need proper irrigation, you need proper, drip shelves or drains and whatnot, and that thing doesn't get serviced properly. You're going to have the whole facade stained. So I would strongly suggest you think about any other type of design or, if some reference to plants, flowers, whatever, be done in a cutout steel. I'm not here to give you suggestions, but I'm saying I have a real concern with the longevity and how this planter box will be maintained to the detriment of what public is going to be seeing. I have also a lot of concern about the second level, very deep. We all know offices beyond 30 feet get really, really, really complicated to keep a good space, regardless of whatever lighting package you can put there. So people do need to see natural light. So I would strongly recommend that a clerestory. I think Annie commented that there were some thoughts on putting a little clerestory so people wouldn't see actually down to the market, but there will be some natural light spilling in. There's actually several studies of mental health issues and whatnot, and productivity, and you name it, on offices deeper than 30 feet. The other one is, I think, a canopy at 9'7", is that right? Pushes that way too low. And it may not help also with the whole visibility or view cones and so on and so forth, that I don't think we call view cones here, right? So what view options to the chief and whatnot. I don't know, there's no information on how signage is going to be attached to that canopy or not. And Luke also commented on the lack of identification, what's retail, what's service, what's whatever. If you look at one of the renderings, I don't know if you can put that on the screen, but your canopy is pushed to 9'7", which I find very low. If there's any signage, and I couldn't identify what that canopy is going to be. It's a solid steel or glass. I couldn't see exactly what's the assembly of that that canopy. But I feel that it doesn't need to, actually in this case, should not be continuous, and probably having different types of canopies with some variation, and helping identifying what's the entrance to retail, service, and residential could be a good thing to do. But my main concern is how low that canopy is, and being very long. I would like to suggest planning to take a look at how signage is proposed there. And if that is, from what the renderings show, a solid canopy, the 9'7" is even lower than if it was glass. The odd thing again about, I was trying to look at what is the minimum allowed size for dwelling units in BC. It looks like it's 370 square feet, but I would strongly recommend, I mean, it's not going to pass building permit if continues that way, so we might as well correct that right now. They're really small. I work for BC Housing, and BC Housing wouldn't accept that for assisted living. So, but regardless of the size of the units, I have concerns with that office space on second level for acoustics that was mentioned, but also security. I mean, how are you going to secure access to the units with people, offices? You have to allow 24/7 access to an office space. So I'm not quite sure how safe that corridor to the residential units on level 2 would be. So if there is any option to separate the access to the second level office, I honestly don't know. I know enough of building code, but maybe you can deal with that space, which is less than 300 square meters, with one exit only, depending on travel distance. So all I'm saying is, think of a creative solution to potentially provide the access control and safety that that space would require. However, I wanted to actually say that I really like how simple the building is. I would still also suggest that those frames around the window could be potentially another color, but this is just my very subjective suggestion for you guys. But we've seen people trying too hard and becoming very complex, volumes and whatnot. I congratulate the design team to come with something elegant and somehow simple. Back to the basics, and it's going to look better. So those were my comments. Thank you.
Super, thanks, Celso, for the comments. We'll go to Michael now.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I think I would just also, I'll be the fourth person to say the planter window boxes, I do have some concerns for all the reasons stated, so I'll just leave it there. I think also Luke's point about the seating area on Loggers Lane, it doesn't really make sense for that to occur on the site in that location due to the nature of Loggers Lane. But if any temporary furnishings are considered, I think some thought needs to be put into who is going to be moving those temporary furnishings and where they'll be stored. And I think if they are just movable on the ground floor, that some things might disappear. So just considering that. I think any sort of awnings at this site will probably blow away or break. So just cautious of that if awnings are considered. The bike racks, I'm not sure if the district has a certain style they require, but I would just suggest that it's not a wave or rack style. I think the hoop and staple are preferred just for functionality. I'd agree with Kim to reconsider the penthouse configuration to enlarge the common patio, rooftop patio. I think that really needs to be bigger to be something that is able to be used by the residents. I saw on the plant list that there's a thuya listed, and the wildfire landscape management bylaw restricts the use of that species. So just refer to that bylaw when you are making your final species selections. I think all the planters are quite narrow, which is fine, but they will definitely require irrigation. So just making sure that irrigation and drainage is provided to all the planters. And then the corner plaza, I feel like it could be a little more permeable to the sidewalk. It feels a bit restricted in the size. Like it doesn't feel very functional to maneuver around there. And I don't think there's any space for a wheelchair to move through that as well with the seating. So I'd encourage the applicant to look at ways to maybe create that more permeable, like whether we take away one of the planters and replace it with, a bench with armrests, just to create more seating and more interaction with the street and hopefully make that space a little more functional. I think that's all my comments. Thank you.
Super, thank you. And I think last one up is Andrew.
I believe that's correct as well, John. Thank you. My comments are, I do really like the Victoria elevation. I think the Victoria Street elevation does meet all the objectives of variability, and I think that is not met on the Cleveland Avenue frontage. I think from a 2D or drawing, or a rendering from a perspective above, I think that's met, but I don't think that from the perspective of the pedestrian, they're going to see much articulation. I think they'll be able to see levels 2, 3, and 4 only, and as those elevations are stepped back, that's going to be the predominant feature. So my comment would be, I'd invite that elevation to be visited to see if it does actually meet those objectives. As far as the PMT, I understand that the restrictions set forth by the utility company and the building code. So as far as treating it with some art, I would invite the proponent to come seek some guidance as far as treating that with and using a local artist. I would also, I think that the plant servicing, that's been named several times, but I do think that does need to be considered. So I'll echo that statement. And then as far as service agreement for waste management, I would comment that some consideration for waste management needs to be considered. I think that striking a service agreement with any of the providers in the local area is going to be very challenging if the recommendation is that they sort of pause on Cleveland for any length of time and pull out the bin. So I think a comprehensive plan to waste management and the general loading of the site does need to be considered. And those are all my comments.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Andrew. So I think we've gotten through everyone. Are there any additional comments? All right, I'll just try and give a quick summary, and please jump in if I've missed anything important. But
Sorry, John, I did miss, I put it in the chat, but I missed really a couple of things, but just beneath the sinks in the units, that they should be readily available to wheel under. So whether or not that's swing away cabinet doors with a kick attached, if it's open, that should be ready to go. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so I'll just give a quick summary of what we heard. And again, folks, let me know if I missed major things. So starting with landscape concerns, there's general admiration of the window planters, however, concern about viability, long-term viability of those. And so wanting to ensure that irrigation and maintenance was considered. Concern that the adequate soil volumes for the trees is confirmed, and that the plantings meet all bylaw requirements, including the wildfire bylaw for the species selection. Some concerns about accessibility, so ensuring that there's elevator access to the upper floors, ensuring that the units are designed appropriately, including roll-in showers and appropriately designed kitchens with room for to wheel under the sinks. There were some significant concerns around circulation. The lack of parking is obviously a concern. It is made even more concerning by the fact that there's no consideration for drop-off or loading around this building. That is significant in terms of waste management. So the panel is very uncomfortable without knowing that there is a comprehensive waste management plan and review by the folks that would be doing the solid waste management for the building. The location of the patio on Loggers Lane was not seen to be appropriate. That adjacency to a really busy truck route was thought to be inappropriate, and the corner plaza should have improved permeability and accessibility. In terms of livability, there's significant concern with the size of the units. They're very small. Again, livability issues with the lack of parking, drop-off, loading and unloading. There's concern about the office space on the same floor as residential. That had to do with a concern around acoustics and as well security and access. And they're concerned about the long, low canopy and how that will work with signage. Unfortunately, we did not have signage information for our review. In terms of design and massing and materiality, well, the panel recognized that the Victoria elevation was sensitively addressed. That was not the case for the Cleveland elevation. It was seen to be significantly lacking, which is very unfortunate for such a high-profile corner in downtown Squamish. So the panel thinks that the Cleveland elevation needs significant work to be up to standard. There is a suggestion that the materiality should be really thought deeply about and some alternatives offered. Hardy is not unique to Squamish, even though it could somewhat resemble the Chief. There's an opportunity to improve the color with some warmth and possibly accents. And consideration that on the penthouse, there should be improvements to the common outdoor space, and that could perhaps be redesigned. Did I miss any major comments from the panel?
We don't think so.
Okay, awesome. So I guess at this point, we'll move on to our recommendation. As always, we have 4 recommendations. I wonder if I could have someone move one of them. You'll have to speak up because I can't see everybody. So again, the recommendations are support with no need for the project to return for further review, support and have the applicant work with staff to resolve the panel's recommendations, support and would like to see the project again in front of panel, and no support. Those are our 4 options.
John, I would be happy to make a suggestion to start us off.
Thanks, Luke, please.
Just given the conversations that's gone on today and the detail that was missing on a couple of items, I would make a motion for C, that we support it as presented, but would like the applicant to resolve the following recommendations and return to present the revised project to ADP.
Okay, thanks, Luke. Do I have someone to second that motion? And please just speak up if you could second.
I would second that, John.
Okay, super. Are there any comments? Or I guess we could just go, yeah, any comments that anyone else wanted to add at this point?
I would. I think the applicant is, I don't know what the conversation with planning and the applicants have been, but some of the questions we have here, and I think it's the ones that we have more concern, which is public realm and whatnot. We do not have any information on what actually Victoria and the surroundings is going to work. And that is what I believe, I'm talking from myself, but it's causing some uncertainty for us to understand as to whether or not we might have missed any comment that we don't even know how things would be in the context that we could direct planning to resolve with you guys. So that's my problem, right?
That's
so
really,
I would have to agree with C. Sorry, I just wanted to justify why and maybe it was a premature submission. I don't know. I don't know how the conversations were, but to me, not knowing how that context going to look like really is difficult.
yes, also that's I hear you. That's a really interesting comment. I wonder if we could sort of amend C, and then we'll put this to a vote, but could we say that we recommend that the advisory design panel would like the applicant to resolve our recommendations, return to present the project again, and specify that when upon its return to the panel, we would like to also have the context for the upcoming upgrades to Victoria. That should be included in the report and presentation from staff.
As well as understanding what's the future of Loggers Lane for pedestrian access, right? Like there was some talk when it was originally developed that there was going to be some sort of sidewalk on one side, but that's never been clear. So I think that we need from the district for you also to provide us with some more details, and that these packages should come in with, you know, a bit more complete with the signage included so that we understand, you know, if it's hanging off the awning and that's going to bump somebody in the head, that's not ideal. So again, complete packages and understanding the context would be great.
If I may just speak to this, the designs are being released by the engineering department, and so the panel will not really have any comment to provide on what the design that's been finalized that's going out for tender for the streetscape is going to be. Also, there's quite a bit of uncertainty related to this project, given that there is a parking variance to provide no parking. So there's obviously hesitation from the applicant to invest in civil design without knowing that that might get rejected. So staff would not necessarily recommend the motion as presented because it could be like there's uncertainty with the RFP process and how long that's going to take engineering to release those drawings. So it could be quite some time. There's also quite a bit of uncertainty with such a significant variance. So staff would, as we don't typically jump in to recommend a recommendation, but working to address the comments with staff would be preferred in this situation, given the amount of uncertainty related to the timing of the RFP of those documents and the uncertainty in general related to this project with such a significant parking variance that if council is not supportive of, will kind of completely, this project won't proceed, right? It'll have to be completely redesigned.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think, in terms of our request to see the information about upcoming upgrades to Loggers and Victoria, it's less about wanting to comment on those upgrades and more about needing to understand what they'll look like to be able to comment on the proposed building. So maybe we'll just leave the recommendation on the floor. That is the recommendation C, and put it to a vote. Maybe, I'm sorry, not being in the room, I can't see all the hands, but I'll just ask for if there's support to recommend C.
Yes.
I'll support C.
As will I.
Are there opposed voices to C? Folks that would like to see a different recommendation?
I would just comment, John, that I think that there is some influx components about the lands beyond, and that's fine. But I think I recommend option C just from what is in the proponent's control. So I'm going to support item C.
Okay, super. Hearing no opposition to C, it sounds like the panel has recommended that we support the project and would like the applicant to resolve our recommendations and return to present the revised project to the advisory design panel. And in addition, we would like to see information on the upcoming changes to Victoria and Loggers.
John, I think we need to strike that last one with the information from Loggers, because otherwise you're tying them to that timeline.
Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, if we do it this way, then at least they can bring it back to us whenever, and maybe the proponent can work with council. And if it goes through the next reading, they could bring it back to us. I don't know. Then they're not putting themselves at risk.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Luke. Thank you. Okay. In that case, I think that our next item is to terminate the meeting. Could I have someone move to end the meeting?
I'll move Celso.
Thanks, Celso. And do we have a seconder?
Yeah, Luke.
Thanks, Luke. And any opposed to ending the meeting at this point? Hearing none, I'll say thanks very much. That's the end of this meeting. We'll look forward to seeing this project again when the revisions have been done. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair.